Even after watching hundreds of videos on YouTube, baking your first sourdough bread can be nerve wracking. A lot of things can go through your mind, and there's really no one there to guide you. I had the same experience on my first bake, but it doesn't have to be like that. So I thought of sharing a much simpler recipe and an easy to follow guide on baking your first sourdough bread. In this video, I'm going to show you how I do it and share some tips along the way that might help you get started in baking the most delicious sourdough bread from home. The first thing that I do is to feed or refresh my starter. I'm using the 1:1 ratio, which means using equal amount of starter, water, and flour. Using a big enough container, I mix all the ingredients, mark the top off with a rubber band, just so I have an indication of how much my starter has risen, and then I leave it and wait. From experience, it would usually take between 4 or 5 hours before it reaches its peak, but I don't rely on time anymore, it's just a guide. Instead, I look for signs when the starter is ready. It should have risen twice or thrice, it has airy sides, and then it's bubbly on top. I'd love to explain this further, but I think I'll do that on the next video, so watch out for that. Now that the starter is ready, I'm going to weigh all my ingredients. I'm baking 2 loaves of 500 grams each, so I need 1,000 grams of bread flour. You can use whole wheat flour, but to make this a simple recipe, I'm using 100% bread flour. I'll add the salt, which is 2% of the total weight of the flour. I measure my water to 750 grams for 75% hydration, and then, of course, the 200 grams starter. I would sometimes dissolve the starter in water to make the mixing easier. My hands are small, and handling a kilogram of dough can get difficult and heavy for me. Then I mix the starter and water with flour and salt. I do my best to mix the dough well to make sure there's no dry flour left in the bottom, but I try not to overwork the dough in this point. A rough mix like this is just fine. This will be left at room temperature on my bench between 40 minutes to 1 hour before the first stretch and fold. Now, after an hour, it's time for the first stretch and folds or coil folds. What I'm doing here is kind of a hybrid because of the size of the dough. To stretch and fold, you can pick up one side of the dough, lift it up, and stretch it a little bit, and then fold the dough into itself. I go around the bowl doing the same thing over and over again until the dough is tight. For this bake, I'm doing 3 sets of stretch and fold with 1 hour of rest for each set. That's a total of 4 hours of bulk fermentation from the time I added the starter in. For every set, the changes in the dough are noticeable. From that big blob of dough that separates when you pick it up, now it has become more extensible, strong, airy, smooth, and has a silky exterior. This is how the dough looks towards the end of the 3 sets of stretch and folds. After the final set, I will let it rest on bench, covered, for another hour. After an hour, I'm ready to pre-shape the dough. So for this, I dump the dough on a floured bench and divide the dough into two since I'm making 2 loaves. Pre-shaping can be a little tricky, especially when you're working with high hydration dough. So I would highly advise starting with low to medium hydration, which is between 65 to 75% on your first bake. Now, to pre-shape, I do sweep the dough in a circular motion and I keep doing that until I have a smooth surface on my dough, just like a baby bomb. So this will rest for 20 minutes covered with a cloth or a bowl to keep it from drying out. Now, it's tempting to keep doing it because it's kind of mesmerizing, but just stop yourself because you may overwork the dough. Now, after 20 minutes, I shape my dough. Now, shaping your dough is important to define its shape, and usually the shaping technique can vary from one baker to another. They have that envelope style that I keep seeing on videos, but it confuses me, so I just do the best that I can here. The important point to remember in shaping is to build tension so your bread will have a great oven spring. Basically, I just try to remember three words: fold, roll, and stitch. So this will rest between 10 to 30 minutes depending on how much time it needs before it passes the poke test. Because the temperature here is different and the sourdough will take its time to acclimatize to the temperature inside my fridge, I actually kind of do it a little bit earlier than later. By the way, before I put this inside the fridge, I will cover it with plastic or put it inside the plastic so the surface will not dry up. After about 12 to 14 hours of cold fermentation, it's time to bake the bread. I preheat my oven to the highest temperature. Some say 220 degrees Celsius is the optimal temperature, but I can't find my thermometer to find out how hot my oven goes. But that's okay. Now, a few minutes before I hit the 30-minute mark of preheating my oven, I'll take my dough out from the fridge, and the next step is to score the dough. We score the dough to give it direction for expansion and let the gases release in this area. If we don't score the dough, that could also work, but the bread might burst in its weakest parts, like the bottom or the sides. Scoring is one of the steps that I really look forward to, and I get really excited thinking about the design that I'm going to make on my dough. But perhaps in your first bread, you can try doing a single slash or try adding a wheat stalk on the side. While I score the dough, I also boil water for steam. After scoring the dough, I put it inside the oven and leave it with steam for 20 minutes. Then I'll take the bowl of water out and continue baking for another 20 minutes. And then voila, from that blob to this beautiful sourdough bread. Now, I hope that this video has helped you gain more clarity and a little bit more confidence so you can start baking your sourdough bread from home. If you have questions or any comments, and if you baked your sourdough bread, let me know in the comments section below. See you again in the next video. Bye!